Most people report having psychic experiences, knowing who's calling before you answer, predictive dreams, gut feelings that turn out to be true. The Institute of Noetic Sciences was founded by Apollo 14 astronaut Edgar Mitchell, and it just released a study about 12 unique noetic signatures based on deep survey data from over 4,000 people. Some of them know things in their bodies, others get mental, emotional, or spiritual downloads. But what are the hazards of personal revelation without coherent social support? And what will happen to us if we keep replacing our latent human superpowers with technology? Still, we have high hopes for 2026. Maybe this is the year we heal from screen addictions. Maybe we'll finally get some kind of blockbuster disclosure about non-human intelligences. Or maybe, if we all pull together, we can finally break free from the algorithm and move back into our enchanted world.
Spectrovision Radio.
Welcome to Gods, Ghosts, and UFOs. I am Mallory, and I'm here with my co-hosts Tom and Jordan. This is the biggest podcast in the universe where we talk about all the things that they said weren't real. Say hello, boys.
Hello, boys.
Hello, Mallory.
Mallory,
Hello.
oh my God, I missed you so much. Holy crap.
Well, we missed you, Tom.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
Tom,
I'm
you
back
were gone
from the
last
dead.
week. And
I was.
Yeah.
I was gone last week. And I was so annoyed that I quit that job.
It's
It
true.
annoyed me so much that I gave notice.
Best news ever.
Which is why we're going to roll out a Patreon in a couple of weeks.
Yes.
Oh, coming out
Yes.
swinging with some announcements. I love it.
Yeah, you bet. Here comes the calls to action.
Yes.
But I'm so happy
Look
to
for
be.
us.
I'm so happy that the three amigos are once again riding out into the liminal spaces of human experience.
Yes, it's a treat to be here. We have big plans today. We're going to talk about a deep dive that Tom has for us. It's a study about people with self-reported psi abilities. Should be very fascinating. And then we'd like to have a hopeful discussion about 2026 and what our hopes and dreams for the year are. And we hope that that will be heartening for us all.
Yes. And if it becomes disheartening, we'll put the rest
Turn it
behind a
off.
paywall in the epilogue.
There you go.
You know, I've been thinking a lot before we get into anything about the discussions we've been having apart from each other, you know. And so Jordan telling me about Mal's ampersand universe formulation, or the conversation that we had with Robin Lasseter about the idea of consciousness as the ground of being, and then the separate idea that we've often discussed about the phenomena that we discussed being co-creative. And I thought, well, the one thing that has yet to be fully discussed, which is obvious in all of this, which is conspicuous in all of these discussions, is the idea that that what the hermeticists and esotericists and magicians and alchemists have thought all along, which is that like we are to a great extent creating our reality. And it's not a thing where we're the passive observers that we've been made to feel, but instead that we are actually collapsing. What is it? Collapsing the sine wave or
Waveforms.
whatever?
Yeah.
The waveforms. That's us. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing as living creatures. It's what we're doing individually and collectively. So, and the reason I thought about it is this idea of like, what do we want to see in 2026? And are we going to be depressed about things we don't feel like we have any control over? And I kind of want to reorient and go, without trying to get to speak it to the universe woo or whatever. I do want to say that like, I want to set intentions and individually and collectively, and that's pretty much the reality I'm going to be living, going forward.
Amen.
Anyway,
Oh.
sorry.
That's so well said. I had a conversation about this exact thing with a friend yesterday, and how manifesting makes people want to barf in their mouths. We've ruined the word. We don't like, but if it's another word for creating, if it's another word for gratitude, it's so obvious that you can reprogram your brain to see good things with a gratitude list every morning. People have learned this in all of the religious and spiritual modalities. There's some practice that looks like gratitude, praying or journaling, and that alone is going to reframe the way that you experience life. And so
That's
it is
right.
quite literally our participation in the reality that we're creating. We understand that we will see more of what we say we want to see or what we say we're already seeing. And
That's demonstrably true.
I don't think that's woo. I think it's science. And I think that that's part of what we're doing here is to try and like take the throw up out of our mouths about the things that are actually just good. Can we just make this simple and okay?
Welcome to God's Ghosts and UFOs, the show that helps you take the throw up out of your mouth. Every week, we come with some paper towels and gum.
And that's why we're here.
I want to kick us off with this cool study, and I'm going to try my best not to monologue too much on it, but it's pretty neat. It's a paper. I'm not sure that it's peer-reviewed. It may be a pre-publication thing. And it's called Investigating Individual Intuitive Expression, Norms and Patterns in the Noetic Signature Inventory. And my dogs are very excited about this, especially some of the conclusions that the authors reach. They're howling with pleasure.
They love a noetic signature.
That's, you know how dogs are. It's written by Dr. Helena Wabe, Beth Glick, and Michael Kriegsman, and it's produced by the Institute of Noetic Sciences in Novato, California, and it came out on November 5th. Now, the Institute of Noetic Sciences, also known as IONS, which I think is neat, are a very interesting group of people that I sort of consider to be fellow travelers with us in the sense that they are, I don't even know how to describe it, decently rational and willing to go outside of the sort of, or well into the liminal spaces. They're a research organization founded in 1973 by Apollo 14 astronaut Edgar Mitchell following his space mission, which begs more investigation. It focuses on studying consciousness, human potential, and the intersection of science and subjective experience, which is very much, I think, where we find ourselves with the idea that, like, the sort of phenomena that we discuss on the show isn't really sort of grasped objectively. It's more experienced subjectively, and then patterns emerge from that. ION occupies a contested space between conventional science and alternative spirituality. Some of their research, particularly on meditation and consciousness, overlaps with accepted neuroscience, while other areas like distant healing or telepathy remain controversial, which is a word I think we should probably discard for something better. They're academically serious in presentation, but pursue questions that most scientists consider settled or unanswerable through the scientific method, which is fine. And there's an interesting word here, norms and patterns in the noetic signature inventory. And I don't know if you guys know what noetic experiences mean.
I don't.
I didn't. It comes from the Greek word noesis, which means inner knowing. So it must be a sister to gnosis. And the authors describe a noetic experience as inner wisdom or direct knowing that transcends the five senses and conventional notions of time and space. We've talked about this stuff all the time with remote viewing or even gut feelings, that human beings have an ability to know or receive information outside of the physical five senses. So examples of noetic experiences are knowing who's calling before you answer the phone. This would be before we had caller ID. Predictive dreams. The idea that someone is in the room with you, or the idea that you're being stared at. Gut feelings that prove accurate, things that we call intuition. And between 25 and 71% of people report having these experiences, and yet they are somewhat stigmatized in Western culture or diminished in importance in Western culture because they are subjective and therefore can be, I don't know, discounted, but we all know they're real. So these guys invented a noetic signature inventory. And their paper is about people who self-report having these experiences, and they have a 44-item questionnaire that measures individuals' noetic signature, which is their unique pattern of intuitive experience. Now, we're not talking about veracity here. We're not talking about how right someone is. They're simply mapping the phenomenon, okay? They started this in 2021, multiple iterations. The initial work was published in Frontiers in Psychology. There was a validation study in 2023. There's a current study. This is the third major paper, and the data set is large. There's almost 4,000 participants in this study. Again, all self-reporting noetic experiences. This data was collected between January 2021 and January 2024. 12 factors emerged from these interviews, not from the researchers, from the interviews. They identified 12 noetic factors. They are general intuition, gut feelings, knowing through emotions or physical senses or your mind, embodied sensations, that's the hair raising on your arms or the back of your neck, goosebumps, tingles, smells, visualizing to access or affect, which is mental imagery for remote viewing, clairvoyance, psychokinesis, inner knowing through touch, which is also known as psychometry. So people are given an object and they hold it and they gain knowledge or, feelings thereby. Healing, using noetic information or intention for the purposes of healing another. Knowing the future, precognition, presentiment. Physical sensations from other people, telosomatic experiences. So someone else has a feeling of pain or pleasure, and you feel that same thing, but it's not originating from your body. Knowing yourself, which is using intuition for personal growth or decision-making. Knowing others' minds, telepathy. Apparent communication with non-physical beings, which we call mediumship. Knowing through dreams, or dream ESP, fascinating. And then an inner voice, which is clairaudience. The key findings are that females scored higher than males across most factors. Multiple ethnicity identification scored higher than single. So if the participant felt like they had multiple ethnic identifications, they scored higher in this questionnaire, and age difference was minimal. Now, one thing that set itself apart was the dreams factor. Not all noetic experiences operate through the same mechanism, and dreams may represent a fundamentally different information access state, according to this paper. The state of consciousness matters. The altered brain state during sleep may be uniquely suited for certain types of noetic information reception. Individual differences are significant, unlike other factors which just rise and fall together. Dream-based noetic experiences seems more independent and more individually based, and it is a distinct skill or capacity. People who scored low on most other noetic factors could score very high on dream factors, or vice versa, while all 12 factors positively correlate, suggesting a common underlying something. Dreams alone don't play by the same rules. The dream factor varies independently, appears distinct across multiple statistical methods, and the author suggests this may be because dreaming represents a fundamentally different neurological state. I don't know if you guys have been visited by dead friends or relatives or had predictive dreams. I would love to know. I mean, I have been visited by dead friends in dreams, and I knew that I wasn't dreaming, if that makes any sense. Like it had a completely different feel. I would be very interested in knowing or hearing from audience members about dream knowing and dream ESP. What I thought was really interesting about this study is that while it does not prove psi abilities, nor does it set out to prove psi abilities, there is a consistency in the reporting that shows a lot of smoke, if not necessarily a fire. The 12-factor structure has been validated across 3 separate studies, and these studies have a historical consistency. So they're identifying patterns of noetic experience that people have reported for centuries that has been studied in laboratories, studied in the Stargate program, for example, with respect to remote viewing, replicated studies, Ganzfeld telepathy, tons of studies about precognition. And we know these things exist. We know they've been studied, and we know that individuals experience them. So the consistency across the 12 factors in this paper is way more compelling than one would expect from just a cultural construction or people saying, oh, I had this experience and it was like this. Because when you put 4,000 people together who are self-reporting these experiences, these things fall into these different categories very consistently, and the types and structures of the experiences are very consistent. So there's some methodological issues, whatever, there's no comparison group. It's just sort of a snapshot in time. I think that it is extremely compelling and more substantial than I think most people would expect from a paper describing a bunch of woo subjective experiences on the part of individuals. And this is the kind of data that I personally crave. Like, this is where you can put together all the reports and look at larger patterns, and the larger patterns hold up, and they're quite consistent and informative. And that's what I have. Sorry if it seemed a little wandery. I was dealing with absolute shed loads of information that I was trying to sift through there.
Tom, that was delicious. Oh my gosh. This is my favorite. I mean, I'm not really, like, if we were only going to talk about one thing on the, like, Desert Island podcast topic, it would probably be how you know what you shouldn't know right when you need to know it. You know what I mean? That's my favorite subject with everyone alive. I love hearing about what it feels like for people and like what their experience of those moments are. And almost granted, I do think I have like an outsized number of anecdotes in my brain because I ask questions about this because I'm so fascinated by it. But it seems like every person I've ever spoken to has some kind of experience that they can't explain with knowing something. And then they tell you where they felt it in their body. Or
can you give us the one standout?
I mean, I immediately thought about this Uber because I often talk to Uber drivers about their experiences. Sometimes if I mention them on a podcast, it comes up more naturally. But I think I may have spoken about it at one point, but I had this really long Uber drive in Hawaii several years ago, and there was a woman whose son had all of these abilities. He was young. He was like maybe 8 or 9 at the time. And he used to have experiences where he would talk to family members he'd never met who had passed away before he was born. And the way she spoke about it, there's just no reason why you would tell some random person. I mean, in my opinion, I feel like I was having my own kind of knowing experience just believing her. But she talks about having this incredibly oddly gifted child. And when he would go out into the water, all of the sea turtles would swim to him. I was in like that sea image. Turtle boy? Yes, like he was just. I remember that story. Yes, exactly. Oh that's the first thing that almost always pops into my head. And I don't know. I was just on a flight a couple weeks ago, and I was pulling tarot, and the woman next. I'm always like a little worried that people are going to be like, "Don't curse me" or whatever, you know. But the woman next to me actually was like, "I wanted to talk with you about." I've been working on my intuition, and here are these experiences I've been having as I've been realizing that I have a purpose and a path in life, and I know what I want to do with it. And I don't know, I think we all have this, and it's really fun to share and swap experiences. So I love this study. And I think calling it psi abilities maybe feels weird to people, but we could call it something else. I think people are really, really quick to say something like, I don't know, I just knew. And nobody's saying psi abilities. Nobody's saying, nobody's saying telepathy. But we're comfortable with that kind of homegrown language. And
Noesis, noetic
Yes.
ability, noetic experiences, which sounds, fancy pants. So I love it. But like 100%, it's available to all of us, and it's not the same for everyone, is it? Different people, like you said, have, different sort of like, I don't know what you call them, sensitivities or gifts, and that's like absolutely fantastic. And I'll go on, but I want to hear what Jordan has to say first before I start monologuing again.
You assume I have something to say.
Buddy, I'd
always
put
do.
money on it.
Unfortunately, my brain keeps going to this direction that is sort of, this is not cynicism, because I'm so down with everything that we're talking about, and I think it's so lovely and cool. But I also am so aware of the sort of dark side of this. There's sort of two dark sides that I've been thinking about. I'm thinking about the dark side of thinking you know something when you don't. There's a lot of self-deception. I have people in my life who would probably claim this kind of experience, but it is sort of in the process of really damaging narcissistic behavior. So there's I think there's a lot of danger in this kind of realm where we talk about how important discernment is, and intuition, and following your gut, and all these things. But I think you also really, really need other people. You really need other people to sort of call you out when you're going in a direction that is toxic to yourself or other people. And I think that that's something that's sort of missing from a lot of our culture. So I guess this is the order I wanted to talk about it in, is that it's not about boundaries even. It's about what are the communal safeguards or even power-ups to these sorts of abilities. Like, how do you leverage the kind of psi abilities or noetics in the context of a community, of a supportive, committed community that is loving and that is trying to sort of make each other better and lift each other up, and also prevent each other from either hurting themselves or other people, which is what community is for, without denying people's abilities. It's like, because there's this fine line, right? It's really easy in a social context for people to say, I have not had that experience, and therefore your experience is not real. And that's not what we're going for either. So that strikes me as an incredibly challenging balance, and I don't know of a community that has successfully navigated it. And that's discouraging to me. So it seems like either you have people finding their way on their own, hopefully successfully, or maybe not so successfully, or being parts of communities that tend to like not fully respect or appreciate or support the kinds of things that they're not personally familiar with, if that makes sense. The other side of this that I was actually first thinking about, and it's because you said knowing who's calling you without caller ID or before caller ID. And it's like ring this bell in my head of this thing I'm thinking about, I think about all the time lately, which is how technology is seeking to do for us things that we could do for ourselves if we were open to them and understood them. And that's how perilous that is. Like it's not, and the thing is that it's like, I wouldn't say like, let's give up caller ID and work on our psychic ability to know who's calling us, like, it's not that. It's not like saying, let's abandon technology and not use it. It's just to be aware. So much of what we're developing and using and innovating and trying to build technologically is in service of things that we maybe could do or have access to in a more, I don't know, organic or human or spiritual sense. I mean, things like healing even. And not to say, like,
Yep.
again, modern medicine, amazing. But like also, how much more amazing would it be if like there was this sort of holistic approach where you had, where energy healing was part of like, a prescription medication. Like, I think that like there's so much opportunity, but I haven't seen a lot of organized effort, let's say, in synthesizing both sides of that coin, so to speak. It seems to lean so far one direction that it abandons the other, or just entirely ignores the other side. There's our famous sort of like cultish type religions that won't participate in medicine because they think it's, it's evil or whatever. There are plenty of cloistered groups who eschew technology of all kind. And it's like, I don't think that's the answer. But then on the other side, we have an abundant number of examples of people who are trying to figure out through, brain machine interfacing how to do psychic things, basically. It just seems like there's this constant sort of battle going on between two sort of sides of the human equation. And it seems to me that, like, insofar as either side vilifies or ignores or discredits the other, that, like, both sides lose. I don't know. I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, maybe, but, like, that's the first thing that actually came to mind about the color ID comment.
I have so many thoughts about what you just said.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, I think, where should we start, Tom, is the question. Should we talk about narcissism and the dangers of gnosis in the wrong hands? Or should we talk about technology weakening all of our abilities to be human and beautiful?
I was thinking more about where do we start with the intersection between the individual and community with respect to a nurturing infrastructure.
I love it. Please start us off.
Let's talk about remote viewing. The information is available to the individual, but is also filtered through the individual. And so there's all this stuff in remote viewing about don't name it, just let it flow through. Don't try to define it and just go with it. And it's not clean cut in which you open up a direct line and you get perfect unfiltered information. That's just not how it works.
Sure.
It works in a different way. But that's also not to say, because we know very well from however many studies have been done on the efficacy or accuracy of remote viewing, that it can be astonishingly accurate. We also know that some individuals are really, really skilled at it, while others not so much, but also that it is available to everyone. Also that different people have different strengths with respect to what maybe they are really good with visuals, or maybe they're really good with other sort of sense, feelings of smell or hearing or whatever it is. So what we have now is, at the same time, a materialist culture that says, don't trust your gut, don't trust your instinct. If one part is wrong, then it's all wrong. Oh, by the way, let us create some stupid machine that'll do this stuff for you.
Or drug.
Yeah, which is still materialism. They're just trying to, expand their purview. So where does that leave us? The community around us must be encouraging, nurturing, and accepting, but at the same time not tolerate or brook destructive behavior. But having someone talk about their individual experience or sense of knowing isn't fundamentally harmful to other individuals.
Sure.
It can be, right? And it can be turned into something that is destructive. Right now, we're so divvied up that, you remember all that stuff in the summer, the late spring, about ChatGPT going like, I know that you're a prophet. Yes, you are a prophet. And stuff, and people losing their minds, right? That's
Right.
not community. That's the
Right.
talking mirror.
So there's a word for this coming out of Mormon culture. At least there's a word for knowledge received from God, like information about what you need to do next. It's called revelation. And I heard my whole life, you cannot receive revelation for other people. I do think there's like a deep wisdom to that. The concept, it came up a lot when I was at BYU because Mormons get married very young. And so there can be a lot of like, well, it's been revealed to me that you will be my wife. So it's very important for women to know that no one else can receive revelation for you, that you have to receive your own revelation. And that seems like it could really be useful in this conversation about noesis. If we think we know something about someone else or other things that are kind of outside of our individual purview, I'm not sure that we're gonna be right about that stuff. And this is more to Jordan's point about, I feel like a test of whether or not something is, I don't know, are we talking about whether it's real or good? I don't know. But a good test seems like if it is abusive or manipulative of another person, I would say that is probably that's not true or knowledge, that revelation. It's an ego-based hopeful, sort of wishful garbage thing.
And I think that's the foundational metric, because
Yeah.
the one thing that we know about any of this stuff, performing, you're a performer, I'm a performer. The first thing I learned was to leave my ego identity at the side of the stage and not bring that stuff on stage. Otherwise, I wasn't doing my job. Same thing with remote viewing. Your own biases will get in the way. So we know that the ego identity construct is not the medium through which this information is received.
Right. And it seems like what we've heard from remote viewers is that they're letting all of that go. Like they aren't there figuring out how to manipulate the money into their hands in that moment. And also it seems to be pretty annihilating of the ego because it's not 100% accurate, because there's no way to be like, I can't like with a calculator prove that the equation is correct. But here's what I got. And I humbly offer my individual knowledge. You know what I mean? It's like it sort of selects itself. And if people are starting to build cults around their great knowledge, it's almost guaranteed, that it's not knowledge. Because it's
Absolutely
tainted.
the case. Right. Nor is it can it necessarily be repeated. Right. It's not, it doesn't have anything to do with that kind of performance.
The other side of what you were talking about, Jordan, was the idea that we are kind of consistently turning away from, I guess, our human capacities. It does seem like we're going to have to continue to navigate that, and that we have already been navigating it since we developed the wheel, technically. We weaken ourselves when we don't require ourselves. Like, we've opened up all of these opportunities for us to be able to do more, but also we no longer do that thing with our hands, and so our hands are all soft and weak.
I was astonished to learn that, I'm assuming this is the case, that 2,000 years ago, if someone attended a play in Greece, they remembered the entire play.
Yeah.
It wasn't a thing where they had to read the transcript of the play, or if they heard a 2-hour speech by a politician, that they could repeat that because they had no other medium through which to commit that into their own self, to internalize that. They didn't rely on the written word in that sense. They relied on their own direct experience. And I was like, at first when I heard that, I was like, that can't be true. The brain doesn't have that kind of capacity. And then I thought, oh, that's sad. that was what that's the saddest reaction.
Yeah, I mean, all of this is connected to the same thing. We shortchange ourselves, and then I think kind of have to do the math of this is this a sacrifice worth making? Like technically, like GPS to me feels like a sacrifice worth making. I no longer have a map in my brain of Los Angeles as I would if we didn't have GPS. But the time that I've gotten back, I think is worth it for the thing that I've lost. But there are some things I don't think are worth it at all. I don't think giving up actual human connection and oxytocin is worth the dopamine dump that I'm getting from these like short bursts of short form content from people I no longer speak to that I somehow still feel like I'm in community with because of social media. And I also don't think, I mean, I don't mean anything judgmental or controversial about this, but I think even just the subject of something like a GLP-1 being something that's for everyone and everyone's body, which is essentially like, don't listen to your body. Take this drug and it won't talk anymore, and you know what I mean? And similar drugs, obviously, to try and deal with other chemical imbalances that we might have, which of course medications are needed by lots of people for lots of things, and I'm not here to discuss that, but I do think that there's something really wistful for me about what you were saying, Jordan. What if part of your prescription when you went to the doctor was, what is your body telling you?
I thought
how
the
do you
same
feel
thing.
in the morning? Have you listened? Have you been in silence at all this week? there might be something in that silence for you.
If you just look at studies about the placebo effect, there's so much information there about the extraordinary power of just expectation as opposed to some sort of physical therapy. If someone is thinking that they're getting the thing that does the thing, in many instances, that's the same as getting the thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's a lot. I mean, that speaks directly to the power of that we have to heal ourselves. And I think that it would take a very cynical person indeed to deny the fact that there are individuals who are capable to some extent to heal others.
Yeah.
Hell, we have whole religions about it, for crying out loud, but it's not just the one special guy.
Yeah.
This is actually a decent segue into our conversation about 2026, because Jordan and I were talking with Jordan Crowder about and the course I think is often probably geared toward people at the beginning of the year because they're setting goals and they're manifesting what they hope are good outcomes for their future or the things that feel right for them in their lives. And one of the notes that I took from the sort of onboarding part of his course was this line here. Research in predictive processing shows that the brain constantly simulates multiple possible futures and chooses the one that feels most expected. And so our expectations matter immensely. Of course, the placebo effect works because it's not all of the futures and it chooses the one that's best for us. It chooses the one that we expect the most.
Yeah.
I feel attacked.
It's like, how can you expect better things for yourself and for others? That feels like the deeper question. Why am I expecting bad things? Yes. Yeah. Yes, raise your expectations.
Anytime you talk about the word expectation, it sets off a little alarm bells for me because there's a saying that goes around, I believe it goes around 12-step circles, but I might be incorrect about that. But basically it's that expectations are resentments under construction.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Oh,
yes, I have heard this before.
Get off my back.
What's interesting to me about that idea is that I don't think that expectations have to be resentments under construction. I believe that what resentments are actually are rejected grief. So if you, because we talked about this in our episode with Robin, that when you have expectations that are unmet or broken or in some way unfulfilled, it causes grief. And that grief is sort of a process of learning reality that turns out to be different than what you thought it was. And that's all of learning, right? Whenever you learn something, it's because you thought reality was one way, or you didn't understand reality in some metric, and then you learned what it was. And in the process of learning, it was a broken expectation, basically, because your expectations are based on what you know or don't know. And so if your expectations are broken, it means that you didn't know something, or you knew, or you were inaccurate about something. And that's sort of painful. And then Seinfeld, I think, is famous for saying that pain is just information rushing in all at once or something. you become very aware very quickly of something that you didn't know before. And that's what pain is, or suffering. So all of this is to say that expectations, I think, are extraordinarily powerful, but also can be very psychically dangerous. So you have to treat them with some amount of lightness or openness, right? Because the other thing that I learned a while ago was, or that I've been trying to learn, I realized that I needed to learn, I should say, a while ago, is that it's not wrong to get your hopes up. And that we caution each other around, don't get your hopes up, be careful to manage your expectations, don't set the bar too high, all these things. And what all of these seemingly good pieces of advice are really just protections against pain. They're protections against the suffering that comes from having expectations not be met in some way. But the sad thing about that is that if you never get your hopes up, then you don't elevate your expectations. And if you don't elevate your expectations, then you are limiting what kinds of futures are available to you. So it's all tied together. So all this is to say, we need to be willing to raise our expectations as high as we can, and then be okay with the fact that at least some of them will be unmet or broken, and that will hurt very badly, but that's okay. We'll survive. We'll move on. And we should the lesson that we learn from that should not be don't have any more high expectations. Like, expect the worst and then you won't be disappointed. Like, that's not the right lesson. The right lesson is there's more. There's more to learn. There's more to do. Like, try again. Get up, keep going, figure out reality better, and raise your expectations right back up to something that is maybe more in line with what your life is for. Anyway, I just think that we have a lot of work to do. And I have a lot of work to do in trying to both have very high hopes and also not be resentful when everything I hope for doesn't just magically happen the way that exactly I want.
Oh, preach, Jordan. Incredible sermon. I loved that. Tom, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking about the Gospel of Thomas.
Well,
Again.
Naturally.
His disciples asked him, when will the kingdom come? Jesus said, it will not be a matter of looking for it. It will not be a matter of saying, here it is or there it is. Rather, the kingdom is spread out upon the earth and men do not see it. If your leaders say to you, the kingdom is in heaven, then the birds will precede you. If they say to you, it's in the sea, then the fish will precede you. Rather, the kingdom is inside of you and it is outside of you. When you know yourselves, you will know that you are sons of the living Father. If you do not know yourselves, you dwell in poverty, and you are that poverty. The better world is not something to aspire to. The better world is something to just simply side slip into because it's already there and available to us. And I'm not talking about a Christianist heaven. I'm talking about literally the fact that, like, for whatever reason or reasons, we collectively make it harder than it needs to be, and we have all of these resources. My permission structure in all of this is having seen with my own eyes over the past several years this deliberate collective move toward embracing human potential and talent and ability. And we're part of that movement, and a lot of other people are too. And I see it gaining momentum. And this year, to me, is coming more into fruition with respect to that astounding potential. At the same time, rejecting the things that are no longer in service. I loved what Robin Lassiter was talking about the idea where she's like, for a long time I thought, patriarchy bad, materialism bad, some kind of aberration. And then she goes, no, we got all kinds of amazing stuff from that. And now we have all of this knowledge that we did not have, all of this insight that we didn't have. And now it's time to turn the wheel. We are in the midst of the great turning of the wheel. Wonderful. So for me, it's all about community, the community that we're pulling together with this show that we're going to continue to sort of coalesce, and that community as part of a larger collective that I find, I don't know how to describe how excited it makes me and how giddy I am when I think about it, and how much more fulfilled and happy a creature I am having just spent, a year doing this show with you guys? Not even a year? When we talked about it, we started discussing it, I think, a year plus.
A little over a year ago, yeah.
I can measure differences in myself as a result of just being involved in this and interacting with people on Substack and Spotify and people who've been commenting or writing us. It's amazing. So I feel like that door has been cracked open, and now I'm just going to go ahead and push it all the way.
So what are our big plans, personally or collectively, for this new year? I have some things that I actually may want to just wait for the epilogue to talk about, which is such a mean thing to do. Well, mostly, actually, you know what I'm really nervous of? I'm really nervous about you guys just making fun of me. Because
why would we? We're the sweetest sweeties.
I know.
You're going to be fine. You're worried about what you already think about yourself. You know that's what it is, right?
That's fair.
It's so true.
That's totally true. It's totally true. I don't know. I'm this is not really like personal, but I do hope that we get some like major, I don't even want to say disclosure. I want to say like some major revelation stuff going on with respect to non-human intelligences, UFOs, whatever you want to call them. This year and or next year has been kind of like on the books for a while in terms of in terms of expectation. Speaking of expectations, collective expectation. And I don't necessarily even expect it from like the government, but from just people, and how there's more and more people who believe in this stuff, are aware of this stuff, are talking about this stuff. And I'm just waiting for the moment where it kind of like stops being something that's snickered about on CNN, you know?
Sure.
And I wonder if this is the year. That's a big one for me.
I have a similar hope for the world based on, again, my own filtering system and the people that I'm talking to. But I really hope that we're starting to heal from our screen addictions. I'm hearing so much in the conversations I'm having. I mean, with literally every soul I speak to from different generations, you know, whether it's my parents or my nieces and nephews and who are Gen Z or Gen Alpha, like people are tired. Their nerves are fried. We're ready to put it down and join a club. You know, I'm hearing this more and more that my brother was saying, he was like, the only way we do this is that we all put our hands on the lever together and slowly push it down. And I know that there are some things that can't be reboxed, but I love seeing people reclaim sunlight and each other. And I hope for more healing. That's what
Amen.
I hope for.
You know what it seems like, Mallory? It kind of seems like we're collectively taking like a step one in the 12 step. Like we all at this point we finally recognize that
our lives are unmanageable.
Yeah,
Yes.
This isn't working. This
Yeah.
isn't working. This isn't working.
Yes.
I can't keep doing this. Yeah, that's beautiful. And I'm right there with you. And I do think that there's a major groundswell of awareness and desire to get away from this stuff. And it's all of us. Like I preach this stuff all the time, and I am just as guilty as anyone of like just
Me too.
scrolling. I just scroll and I'm like, what am I doing? I don't know how many times a day I catch myself in the act and I have to be like, I'm putting the phone down. I'm like, I got to get back into the moment. I got to get back to these people that I'm with right now. And it's embarrassing how many times a day that I have to do that. And I would love to get to a place maybe this year where it's not something I'm catching myself doing every day. It's like maybe every once in a while I'm like, oh yeah, I used to do this sometimes, but I don't do it anymore.
Well, the
It's
point of
possible.
meditating is not to instantly eliminate all thought from your mind.
That's
it's
true.
to recognize that you have thought, you know.
Yeah.
And simply to acknowledge it without being caught up in it. That is the work. That's what's happening. With what you guys are saying, I would love to finally just for us to free ourselves from the fetters of the algorithm. This idea that things are pat and predictable and productive is abhorrent to me. And move into the realization, not the expectation, but the understanding that we live in an enchanted world, that the real magic is in interaction and noesis and intuition and knowing and the really wonderful, wild, gorgeous unpredictability of ourselves and each other, not in ways that are necessarily dangerous unless you're just threatened by gnosis. But like there is so much beauty and beautiful things going on, and so many ancient and modern traditions of participating in them, celebrating them collectively, embracing them individually. It's gorgeous. And it's all right there.
If I had the cojones, I would just hit stop recording right now. I think I might actually. That's
2026.
it. Tom,
Going an
you
hour.
just closed our episode. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's why I've given myself a raise.
Excellent.
Couple of quick reminders before you go. First off, if you haven't left a rating on your platform of choice, please do that. One of the first things people look at when they're judging a show by its cover is the number of ratings it has. So if you dig what we're doing, show it with stars. In the epilogue, we talked about how social feed algorithms steal your personality. A pretty massive, inspired decision about the future of the show, and our first progress report on taking Jordan Crowder's Law of Probability course. If you want to hear it, go to godsghostsufos.com or find the link in the description. See you next week, friends.